Mickey Hart here, you're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colin Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other, and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and they're both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
Welcome along to the GAA Hour. This is the football show on a Monday with Cian and Conan here as usual. As the Super 8's have finally delivered. We were positive here on a Monday. Bloody buzzing. What a brilliant day of football yesterday. High scoring, loads of kick passing, two really exciting games between four really good footballing teams. Loads of kick passing. And I mentioned loads of bloody kick passing. And I know we were all doom and gloom last week, and obviously I still stand by the fact that the game needs a tweak or two. We're not going to get into that, but maybe the conditions last Sunday contributed to these real borefets, because a lot of the same teams are in action this weekend in lovely conditions, and they serve some bloody brilliant football.
Yeah, well, Croke Park is particularly slippy and dicey on a wet day, more so than any other pitches. And something I was thinking about, I don't know if it has any relevance at all, but you saw in the Roscommon Donegal game the big Donegal football with the DL written on it. Yeah. Whereas when you're playing Croke Park, it always seems to be brand new O'Neill's footballs or something similar. They're not brought by the counties. They're from Croke Park. I don't know if that even makes a slight difference, that the ball is that bit slippier, because in Croke Park on a wet day, a guy has touched it all and he seems to spill the ball. So
it's like a bar of soap.
It's always like a bar of soap. So it is a difficult place to play when it is like that, very greasy, and it does contribute to sort of messy action. But sometimes that can be very exciting in a game. But we just didn't see it last weekend. Whereas this weekend we were served up. I mean, the standard in periods of all the games was really, really high in terms of very, very difficult to get the ball back off the opposition. Kick passing very accurate, just everything done at high speed with precision, which was really, really good to watch. Really
top class and exciting stuff. So Dublin are through after the weekend. There's no surprises there. Galway got through because of Clifford's last minute goal. Now the question for Galway is, they have a 2-week break. They have the All-Ireland semi-final a week after the Monaghan game. How are they going to approach this game? I put up on Twitter last night, just out of curiosity, see what people would say, does it suit Galway to play Dublin in the semi-final? And everyone's like, oh well, you can't lose to winning momentum, and all these lads that would know feck all about winning momentum. But at the same time, I do accept that point. We saw England in the World Cup losing to Belgium, and Belgium rested players. I remember, didn't we see Wexford in Division 4 last year throw their last 2 games and then lose to Carlow? Are you losing that momentum? Or are Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final, playing Comer, Shane Walsh, all these good players a week before that game? The All-Ireland semi-finals a week after that qualifier.
That's the big factor for me, is that the semi-finals are the week after the last qualifier game, or the last quarter-final match.
It's just so wrong, by the way.
That's a bit silly. I think that I can understand why they needed to give certain teams a break. Like the teams that came through the qualifiers, like Kildare, for example, are after playing a large number of games. Monaghan, the same. Yeah. It's very, very difficult on them, and I think it kind of caught up on Kildare eventually with different niggles and knocks. They couldn't just get the best of themselves in that game, and it might have made those small things might make the difference. But when it comes to Galway now, they're already through. I mean, what they have this quarter-final match, they have nothing to play for. It doesn't matter. They're already in the semi-final. Think about it in any other logical manner. If you were playing in a championship semi-final with your club, and you have a league game the week before, why would you care about the league game? Lads will be wrapped up in cotton. All your top men will be saying, these guys are after playing now 2 weeks in a row. If we rest them up, we have a kind of a two free weekends between now and the semi-final. That's the way they should be looking at it. You look particularly for Galway. They're after having it, like Conroy's after breaking his leg. You have Duggan, who's been out with injury. You have Michael Daly, who went off with a hamstring injury, who was struggling with that. They're 3 key players for them if they were fit and available. So they can't afford to lose any more. Now, certainly off their starting 15. So if you think about it, a full game in 2 weeks' time for, say, Sean Armstrong, Varley, that will be worth far more to them than Comer, Walsh. These guys that just, I don't think they need the game time.
Galway will be trying to win the game, but it won't be their first.
But it's not relevant.
No. They'd use the club championship analogy though. Would you rather, if you have Vincent's in the semi-final or Castleknock in the semi-final, it still is relevant, this league match.
Well, this is what I think. I think when you get to the knockout stage, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, they'll have to play Dublin to win an All-Ireland.
Would you rather want Dublin in a one-off game in a final? You know,
I think I'd want them in a semi-final, yeah. Because Dublin I think are more beatable in a semi-final than in a final. We've seen that Mayo nearly catching them, although Mayo nearly catch them in finals as well. But I do think psychologically you could catch Dublin. Imagine playing this Dublin team in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
It's huge. I think that might be a step too far. But a semi-final, it's it doesn't seem as big, maybe.
Yeah, and oftentimes when it gets to a final, there's people always say semi-final the hardest game to win, because there's so much at stake or whatever. But a final is harder to win again, and there's more nerves for a final. Has to be. So therefore, Dublin are very, very accustomed to the two All-Ireland finals, all their squad, all their players. A semi-final is it's not as big of a game. You can't, it's just slightly below that. So maybe that is the time to get them. But I personally don't think it's in any way relevant. I think if you're in any round robin scenario, in a group stage of anything, all that matters is get to the knockout stage. It actually doesn't matter whether you finish top of the group, just barely scrape over the line to get out. Once you're in that knockout stage,
if you have notions of winning it. Do you know what I mean? If you've notions of winning it, they should just blank out who they're getting in the semi-final.
Doesn't matter. You have to beat them to
players, win. Rest their players. So, if this is the case and Galway do rest players, then Kerry are as good as out then, because, Monaghan can't afford to rest players, so they'll be going to win that one flat out. Although Galway obviously will be trying to win it, but they can't afford to lose Comer or Walsh because they're in the semi-final. You're definitely right in that point.
Put yourself in Walsh's position. Imagine he plays his full team. They're already through, and any of his players get injured. He'd be hammered. Even his own players would be like, why are you even playing me in this game? I have an All-Ireland semi-final next. I have an All-Ireland semi-final next weekend. Why am I playing this poxy match that means nothing?
Well, it dictates who to play in the semi. But again, I do take your point. You black that out.
If you're one of the main men, it's irrelevant. If you're a fringe player, you're saying, I want to play because I want to stake a claim for a place. I want to go from third sub on to first sub on, or whatever the case may be. There is a pecking order in the team. Varley came on the last couple of games, did really, really well, and Sean Armstrong was brought on ahead of him against Kildare. So maybe he's kind of thinking, God, I could do with a game to show up better than Sean Armstrong, maybe to put myself up the pecking order. So I don't know, just these small things might make a difference.
All these small things, exactly. Well, I want to start off with some refereeing incidents here, lads, from the weekend, and get these out of the way. Daniel Flynn sending off. Now, I don't think this was a sending off. There is no conclusive evidence this was a closed fist. It's absolutely out of character for Daniel Flynn to hit somebody. That was a Mike Tyson style kind of roundhouse hook. But I don't think it was a closed fist. I think when you get to a stage where somebody's constantly pulling you and his run was checked, he's pulled back, that was a big swing. And maybe he didn't get the swing that he wanted, and it looked like there was contact on his head. O'Kelly was up 2 minutes later running down the field. He didn't make he went down, but he didn't make a huge meal of it. I'm not sure that was a sending off. Kieran Donaghy the next day wasn't a sending off. Very, very similar incident where you're swinging an arm around to get someone off you. You're being fouled. Do you know? Thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was going to say it probably is a sending off, and Donaghy's was probably a sending off, but you don't really care that they're not sent off. Do you know? Holding on to
a yellow, you get away with it. I think when you're being fouled, you should get the yellow. Do you know? If you do it, you're it's unprovoked, then maybe it's a red, it's dirty. But if you're being fouled, I think there has to come a stage, Cian, and you'll obviously know this, both of you will know this from playing in the forwards. There comes a stage when you're constantly being fouled, and this is going back years. But you have to put manners on your man, or else how are you going? You're going to stand for this for the whole game. So Daniel Flynn has to go at some point. This lad's going to get a bit of a clip off me. I'm going to pretend to throw him off me, and if he gets contact, whatever. Kellick has to learn that he can't get away with that, and if the ref isn't going to help Flynn, what can Flynn does he have to put up with that for a whole game?
It's a very tricky one. It's one of these where it's sort of where does your morality lie in it, and you're always sort of kind of going, okay, we know what the rule is. The referee and the officials are there to enforce the rule. So when you're, say, Daniel Flynn in that scenario, I mean, this isn't an isolated incident in the game. This is any time he goes to make a run.
Yeah, he's been checked.
He's been checked. He's been dragged. He's been pulled. Or even when they're in close proximity, there's pulling and dragging going on. As you would expect a defender to do, make life as hard as possible. But ultimately, if he's fouling Flynn, the official should be giving Flynn a free.
Yes.
Now, what happens is, over the course of a game, this might happen one time, a second time, a third time. You're like, Jesus, lads, I'm getting pulled and dragged here, and you're doing nothing about it. So the obvious thing is you take the law into your own hands. And this happens all the time. And it is a case of, you know, maybe some lads want to lay a marker down. Like, you know, Steve McDonald is a great man to talk about this, because I can remember, and I said it before, you'd play challenge matches against Armagh, and in challenge matches in particular, it's pretty much a case of, you know, if a lad even put a hand on somebody, that hand was getting knocked away, or he was getting a box, and that was it, because you knew, right, okay, you might have to be more disciplined in an official match, or in a, you know, in a competitive game, because you don't want to get sent off. But in a challenge match, it's a case of, you're not putting your hands on me, don't even think you can put your hands on me. But that's it. But that's the law of the land, and that's been going on for years. And you just know from years of playing it, you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to have to do something to this lad here, because this can't continue. You might shout to the linesman, you might shout. So this was a Quinlan, or whatever your man's name is, that the linesman, the referee, anyways. McQuillan. So why on earth, when he saw that and was able to wave for Flynn to get a red card, why didn't O'Callaghan get a yellow card for pulling Dragon? Why is he so quick to pull a forward for pushing him off aggressively? And you could say borderline red card. But why is the defender getting away with all this nonsense? And I was in Oman the other night. The amount of shit that's going on off the ball is out of control now. So you've got fellas trying to make a run to get up the field. You've been pushed in the chest back. So your momentum's gone. So then you have to try and make another run, and you'll be bumped into again. And you can't get... It was one particular incident with Kieran Kilkenny and Conor Myler, where the ball had gone up the field, and the ball was gone back behind Kilkenny, and Kilkenny was just turning facing Myler and pushing him in the chest whenever Myler was trying to catch up in the play. The linesman was standing looking at this. Like, how can lads get away with this? Now, Myler was doing the same with Kilkenny. It's not a Kieran Kilkenny issue. At one point, Kilkenny stuck his two arms outside both Myler's side, so Myler couldn't actually run right or left around him to get out after the play. And like, I mean, this is just accepted part of the game now, and there's a linesman looking at this. So I've huge sympathy for Daniel Flynn, and if I was Myler at that occasion, Kilkenny might have to get a punch in the stomach. If your linesman's not helping you in that situation, you have to teach Kilkenny a lesson to not do that to you anymore. It's huge. Do you remember the Paul Galvin incident years ago where he knocked the notebook out? He was being dogged and then retaliated, and he just, out of pure disbelief that the referee is now going to send him off after being dogged, he slapped the notebook out and gets a 6-month suspension. It is a thing that it does drive people mad, and I think Kevin McStay as well lost the plot as well with the linesman as well, because they can clearly see what's happening and they're not informing the referee, who maybe is unsighted or can't see it. So there is definitely a massive sense of injustice, and I think when they've, you know, when they tried to clean up the game with the black card so that runs couldn't be checked, people are getting cleverer about it. They're doing it off the ball. Yeah, absolutely. They're doing it off the ball, away from the play. The same stuff is going on, and look, unfortunately, it is a part of the game that obviously you kind of want to see stamped out. You know, you can call it clever play or whatever it is, but I think ultimately in big games, players just need to mind what they do. They can't be as obvious about how they deal with it. I think, look, the Flynn one was a little bit, it's hard to see exactly what, you know, the angle that we would have had watching the game. It was inconclusive. It's difficult to tell. But it did look exactly like a big swing. But I suppose the rule is it's a striker attempting to strike. Now, the difference being, if some guy has a hold of your jersey and you strike his arm to get it off you, I mean, how in the name of God could that be considered, you know, an offence? It is a strike, but it's not you know, you're not throwing a punch at his head or his body or anything. You're getting he's illegally holding on to you and you're trying to get him off you. So I think there has to be a little bit of that, and defenders are a little bit to blame. Well, they're massively to blame here, because what they do is they grab onto the forward, they antagonise the forward continually throughout the game, and then with the slightest bit of contact they go down holding their face when they might have got a belt on the arm, and that's, you know, there's nothing manly about that. I think if guys are going at it toe to toe, like I would have respect for the guys that are kind of saying, you know, they're bringing that physicality, you know, they're checking ones, they're making life difficult, and if they get their belt, they take it and they move on and they just go with it again, and they continue to do the same thing. The hardy defenders, they're the guys that, you know, there's something manly about what they're doing. They're making life difficult, and they're willing to get, you know, if they're willing to throw it out there, they're willing to take it without whinging to the referee or the officials as well. It's the great one of Mick Lyons getting a punch straight into the jaw, and not even going down, like actually just getting on with the game. Like, where would you see that now? It comes back as well again to referees, sort of the understanding of the game, and how, like, why is Daniel Flynn reacting to that and not looking at what happened just before that? Why is McQuillan not saying, okay, he points him, so maybe it is a red card, but let's deal with this guy first? The same way the forward
always gets a yellow card. The referee comes down and gets 2 yellow cards when 2 lads are wrestling on the ground.
Yeah.
When the forward wants to be attacking,
he's trying to get away. He's
actually
trying to get away from the wrestle, and that's the obvious tactic. Let's get a wrestle going on with this fella, and we'll get both at yellow cards, and that's it.
And Barry Cahill said that the other night up in Cookstown. Has Stephen O'Neill on a yellow card. He's like, very easy to get him a second yellow. You know, he's just basically saying how easy it is.
This is going on for years. I always tell a story about me trying to get Keane O'Sullivan onto a yellow because Alan Brogan had me tormented that, Wooly, you can't. There's no way you can beat this fella. Like, he's faster than you. Even if you get past him, he's going to get the ball back off you. Like, there's nothing you can beat him on now. Because I was 31. This fellow was in his prime. So I said, right, thinking in my head, I'll get him on a yellow. I successfully got him on a yellow. Now, I acted like I never acted before on the field. I constantly tried to get into a wrestling match with him. I talked to him. So I eventually succeeded in getting into a wrestling match. We both got yellows. I told him, you're in trouble now, you're on a yellow. He continued to clean me out during the match. It didn't work at all, but I was able to get Keane O'Sullivan, who is the cleanest gentleman you'll ever see on a field. I was able to get him a yellow through acting like an absolute tramp. That's like, you know what I mean, on the field and getting it. Anyways, I don't want to get too much into that, because you have Maurice Deegan then on the flip side of McQuillan. You have Maurice Deegan yesterday giving a free for Conor McManus against Ronan Shanahan, which was an absolute disgrace. And we saw this with the other referee up in the Connacht final, the referee who likes kind of being the centre of attention as well.
There's a lot of them here.
Very slick looking guy. You know him. He was in the Connacht final, Conan. The Connacht final. When he gave all. You do know him. He gave all the frees to Roscommon off the ball in the Connacht final, the rain 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
What's his name?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyway.
Are you still recording?
But we have Maurice Deegan trying to be really clever and indicating that there was a jersey pull. There was no jersey pull. So Maurice Deegan's either lying, or what is he seeing when there was no jersey pull? He's indicating a jersey pull, and he's looking to be smart and clever. And it was a disgraceful decision at that stage of the game.
Yeah, I think that referees sometimes are aware of something that's going on, and they can maybe, another example that you can think of from the game against Monaghan was one of the Monaghan players was going through and he was fouled. I think it was McInnesby. He was fouled by Crowley, who came across to stop him. Clear foul, but Deegan didn't give the free. Somehow McInnesby managed to retain some control of the ball on the ground and then went down to pick it up and just fell over with 3 Kerry guys around him who didn't foul him on that occasion, but then he just gave the free because and in that scenario I reckon he just said, oh shit, should have given the free the first time. I hope to God he keeps the ball here. And then as soon as there was any chance to give another free, bang, gave it. So I think maybe to play, to maybe try to defend Deegan in some way, he's probably aware that there's a lot of pulling and dragging going on. Maybe he's being told about this, that McManus has been pulled off the ball or whatever it is. You just don't know what's going on.
This was not a case.
This wasn't the case. But maybe he's just saying, right, well, I've missed a couple of them. I'll give this one. There was a hand on him. There was
such a crucial stage.
It was very soft in a game of that magnitude.
Of the game, and you're allowed to be touch tight. Like, defenders always put their hand out to make sure where you are you there? Am I touch tight? You're told to be touch tight. But at the point of a game where you're only touch tight and a referee saying you're pulling the jersey and giving a vital free against you, like, it's just not on. So this is just the opposite. This is him actually, while you want to stop the pulling and dragging and body checking, this is Maurice Deegan going the other way and actually being wrong on the other side of it. Like, I mean, it's just bizarre. Then you have Paul Murphy being caught for over-carrying when it absolutely wasn't over-carrying. You have Damien Comer, who couldn't buy a free yesterday. He was caught for over-carrying when he was fouled twice running in along the end line. So it's either advantage and a goal or it's a free in for Comer. It gave a free out for over-carrying. So there's 2 examples of over-carrying. And I'm wondering, as this referee seen Jerry Aylward in the hurling take about 22 steps and a bit of talk about that, how everybody gets away with it and suddenly they're pulling for over-carrying when they're not really. I think Paul Murphy took that solo just in time.
Real football people don't watch the hurling, so I don't think there was anyway.
But I just think there was some terrible refereeing decisions the whole weekend.
Yeah, like in the Damien Comer one, he probably eventually did take too many steps, but he should be allowed to take as many steps as he wants as long as 2 lads are just hanging off him.
Well, that's it.
There's 2 boys holding him back and he's trying to get away from them, so he should be allowed to carry on with as many steps until they let him go. It seems to be if you're a big man, you're allowed to just have the shit beat out of you.
That's always been the case. And then you have in the Tyrone game, Dean Rockfree being brought up like this is serious football, or what was that? I didn't see a replay. I was at the game.
There was even on the replay, I was kind of thinking, was that it? Was that what it was given for? Hugh Pat McGeary just walked. didn't even run across, didn't seem to wave his arms or anything. He just kind of encroached slightly beyond where the other man was. And then you'd have similar situation for Ronan O'Neill's free.
Yeah, Mickey Hart was talking about
ran across in front of him. I mean, there was absolutely no consistency there. Number one, I can understand why the Dean Rock one was pulled. If he stepped inside, right, it's a technical foul.
Listen, Dean Rock can kick a free to win an All-Ireland with a GPS thrown at him. Dean Rock's all right.
I know, but you can't.
Although he did miss that free, but I don't think it was because of the fella.
No, but look, you can't. Yeah, he did miss it, but look, you can't condone it. He committed an offence. Free was brought forward, but the exact same thing happened to Tyrone.
Yeah.
Tyrone can count themselves a little bit unlucky, particularly when you consider it was at a much more crucial juncture in the game. You know, they were 2 points down. That free would have brought them back to a point. Still should have kicked it, but nonetheless, a small distraction at that stage. He was only on the field.
Yeah,
you know,
it was a terrible. It has to be said, it was a terrible miss by Ronan O'Neill at this level of football at that crucial stage. You can't miss one on your good side from a very kickable kind of position.
Should he be hitting it as the first? Well,
McAlliskey went off, you see. So I don't know who was left on the field to be on the right hand side.
He was the man to kick it. Like, he is a free taker, and he's come on in all their other games and kicked frees. So he was the man to kick it. And look, the reality is it should have been brought forward. If the Rock one was brought forward, that one should have been brought forward.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The ball being kicked out to slow down the Kerry kick out, lads. How did this continue on for the whole game? Like, this was a disgrace. Like, it's so obvious what's going on here. And nothing was done to stop this. Nothing. Like, I mean, an umpire wouldn't even shoot out, take it and bring it in and let the play go on. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's... Number one, it's cheating. Now, it's gamesmanship, and we've seen gamesmanship. I'm not all too critical about the gamesmanship. You've got a home venue. Let's start a bit of trickery. We probably own the ball, boys, or whatever. Let's take an advantage. I'm not too critical of Monaghan doing it, but like, surely it has to be clamped down on. Like, I mean, how
for God's sake, I can't understand. Like, let the kick out go on. For God's sake,
and then get an umpire to pull it in.
Clear. Yeah, like it was. I was looking. It wasn't nice to see, to be honest.
No, it's gamesmanship slash cheating.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit messy, but look, the officials have to take control of these scenarios. Like, if lads are acting the maggot, which they were. People will always try to take whatever competitive advantage they can. It's up to the officials to decide what's within the rules and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I just can't understand why they could clearly see what was going on. Just let them take the bloody kick out and move on.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I blame the officials, like, because I think players and managers will do whatever they can. That's what the black cards brought in for, to stop these things. Officials are there to stop that. Let the kick out go. Call an umpire here. Bring in that ball. Like, it seems very logically easy to me.
Yeah, and the next break of play, the ref should just go over and have talk to the fourth official, have a word with the management or the steward, whoever it is.
Yeah, or have the umpire identify who the fella is and have him sent off the field. Yeah, exactly. Done then. That's just competent officiating. So that's that one. The other one is the whole mess between the pitch being narrowed. So I saw a picture. Brian McGuigan had a picture last Thursday night, and it was clearly obvious that they'd brought in the pitch. Again, nothing wrong with that. You see managers doing that all the time. It's like, you've got home advantage, let's narrow it in. We saw Dublin, we'll talk about that in part 2. They posted men on wide out on the field in Croke Park last year and kept the width wide and destroyed Tyrone. So Tyrone we're going to bring in the pitch. Now, Mickey Hart after the match blamed Sky for it. He says, this narrowing of the pitch has nothing to do with me at all. Snigger, snigger. That was a request from Sky, that there would be more clearance on the side for all their technology. The Oma St Enda's club asked me would it be okay with that, and I said that's fine, work away. So Sky issued a statement, or were asked about it, and says this is incorrect. Sky Sports did not ask for the pitch to be narrowed, nor would we ever make such a request. So don't know why Mickey Hart is trying, unless he's been given incorrect information by Oma St Enda's football club, and it was their decision to do it. Maybe you'd be surprised if they do this and not have Mickey Hart.
Yeah, well, I for one tend to believe Mickey Hart. I couldn't believe that Mickey Hart would tell a lie, and this corporate entity Sky would be telling the truth. When you compare the two, I believe in Mickey Hart.
Mickey Hart's been in confession already this morning.
I don't understand, why is he lying? Like, you're allowed to bring it in. There's a minimum requirement to have the pitch at
it's
a
one
certain
of the one of the 10 commandments, isn't it? Thou shalt not lie.
But it's a perfectly fine thing to do. It's legal. It's all above board.
Yeah,
I don't know why he's lying. It's like the same way we're talking about people who deny that they're playing defensive football. Like, you're allowed to play defensive football. You're allowed to narrow the pitch to a certain amount of width.
You have leeway. Yeah, you have leeway to narrow the pitch. There's nothing against it, and it makes perfect tactical sense for Tyrone and kind of based on how the game went last year. But it was interesting. We'll talk about that game in the second half. But I thought Dublin fans were going to outnumber Tyrone fans, but it was the opposite. Dublin didn't have all that many at the game at all, so I don't really know how the ticket thing. We gave out about that last weekend, but the Tyrone crowd definitely outnumbered the Dublin fans. Dublin took over one end. But anyways, we'll talk about that. Oh yeah, the Kevin McStay incident, lads, quickly, is because he threw the ball at the linesman. I don't think he meant to hit him in the head or whatever, but he got sent to the stand for that. I saw some different kind of little short videos or GIFs or whatever that he put his hand on the linesman. He didn't push the linesman, he just kind of had his hand on him, I thought. I don't think there was too much in it. I don't think there'll be any more on that, but he's on the same lines as what we talked about Daniel Flynn. He's like, the linesman clearly saw this incident. He clearly saw it. The referee could have missed it. I went over to him and I tried to explain to him, tell the linesman this, or tell the referee, communicate to the referee, and all he got back, this is a manager who puts in countless hours, all he got back was get out of my space, like a look like that, not even acknowledged that he's got a case here. That linesmen are a big problem with the game, in that they seem to think and same as umpires, they seem to think that they're just there to flag ball out over the line. They're an extra referee. Like they can stop all this nonsense and messing, because you know yourself, if you want to get up to some messing, you'll have a look up the field, see where the referee, his back is turned on you, you might be able to throw back your elbow then, and you can actually get away with that despite there being two umpires behind you and two linesmen that could, you know what I mean, that they're not if they think a referee has a foul under control, they're not proactive about maybe overruling him or giving him more information. Because the Paul Mannion point in Oma the other night was wide in the first half. Only the Sky camera angles were on the other side of the field, so you never got conclusive look at it, because I was looking at the highlights. But from where I was sitting, it was right behind it. It was wide, and Mickey Hart and Horst Devlin ran down to the linesman, and they were pleading with him to tell the referee. He actually did go in and talk to the referee. This was all the while somebody was down injured, just close enough to half time. I think it was Burns was down injured, and he went in and talked to the referee. Referee went down and talked to the umpires. The umpires didn't change their minds, but that was it. But at least he went in and told him. But and too many of them are not proactive enough about telling the referee stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I think McStay was completely frustrated. It was a fairly obvious free in to Diarmuid Murtagh, the incident that he was got very annoyed with. Very obvious free in to Murtagh. He was fouled by at least once, maybe twice, by the Donegal defenders. Should have had a handy enough free in that would have given them a score before half time. Instead, it ended up in a little bit of pushing and shoving, and the referee just blew the half time whistle. I think McStay was totally frustrated with that. He could see his team were under pressure, and it was, in his eyes, it's a score. Why, we're being cheated out of a score here. Yeah. I'm sure he's probably looking at it, today and kind of going, probably shouldn't have done that. I was over the top. But in the heat of the moment, these things do occur. Unfortunately, he probably will end up getting, the rules are there. He'll get some sort of a ban, and I don't really think he has much grounds for complaint.
No, probably not. He did lose his mind. Right, we have to. Oh yeah, I wanted to complain about the Roscommon support. So I was listening to this. I think only something like 10,000 was showing up, and most of them were from Donegal. And it's like, you've got a Super 8 game at home. Yeah, you got hammered last week. Jesus Christ, what's the point in getting to it if you can't go out and support your team in the home game? Like, Clonus wasn't full. Now, you'd forgive Monaghan, only 60,000 population, and what's Clonus, 35 or something like that, the capacity. So, they nearly need half the people in the whole county. So, but there was a good crowd there, and Kerry wouldn't bring that many. But for Roscommon not to be able to outnumber the Donegal fans at home in a Super 8 game, what's the point in getting there? Like, it reminds me of Everton or Aston Villa or something, trying so hard to get into the Europa Cup and then not bothering it. Yeah. Like, what's the point? Why are we all talking about such a brilliant thing to get to the Super 8s, and then you've one home game and you're not selling out your own home ground? I just can't understand the mentality of that. Like, who do Roscommon think they are? Or do you think they're at such a level now that a hammering makes them completely forget about their team? I don't get it. I thought that was outrageous. I really did. Go out and support your team in the home game. Yeah.
In a do or die match as well.
It was do or die. So exactly.
Basically knockout for them. Quarterfinals at home.
It's what dreams are made of, to have a home Super 8 game, and you're not bothering your arse to go to it. I just don't get it.
But no disrespect to Donegal, they're a team who's just been relegated from Division 2. Roscommon just gone up. It's not like they're playing Dublin and they're going to get hammered. They could have won that match, and they'd suddenly be on level points with Tyrone ahead of Donegal.
Maybe they were looking at the last game against Dublin saying we're out, but like I still think regardless you support them at home. Before we move on there, I wanted to talk about you, Conan, and you getting trash talk last Thursday night in a league game, because Conan was telling me this last Wednesday night. Colin was telling me this at the live show, and he was getting a little bit kind of frustrated about he'd never been trash talked before. So I was like, welcome to the club. So Conan, you can the greatest part of this story was trash talked about me.
Yeah, like I've never needed to be trash talked before. I'm just a very honest donkey, just going back and helping out the defence and getting back forward. But suddenly I had this boy coming over rubbing my hair. I missed a goal chance, and he came over and said, "You shouldn't be taking tips off fucking Willie, should you?" What the hell's going on? Then suddenly got another ball, played it away, and the boy hit me with a dig, and I sort of got up and hit him back with the shoulder. And then suddenly the cornerback and the wing halfback were over, both of them shouldering me, going, "Colin Perkins' little lapdog," rubbing me in the hair. And I said, "Colin Perkins is not here," and I couldn't, like, honestly God, it threw me, because I've never had that before. And I spent the whole time, just you talking about Daniel Flynn, I spent the whole game then thinking, how am I going to get this boy back now? Like, when he has the ball, I'm going to hit him a slap or whatever. And yeah, just had a stinker of a match. Like, just got completely inside my head, and all because of Colin Parkinson.
Unbelievable stuff.
We're going to work on that, Conan. We're going to get you right.
We'll have to pull him aside. Yeah, we'll pull you aside. Maybe we need to talk more about dealing with trash talking rather than the actual trash talking incidents. The act itself.
The worst about it, after the game, he came up to me and said, "I'm only winding you up. I love the podcast."
Right. Okay. We'll be back and we'll look at the matches. Alright, so Eamon Fitzmaurice said after this game, lads, we'll start Monaghan Kerry. It was the most exciting game probably of the weekend, and he said we won the draw, and it's hard to argue with that, but he says I think coming off last weekend's performance, the lads reacted well today. It wasn't a perfect performance. It wasn't about being a perfect performance. It was about being strong from a mentality point of view and keep going. The lads did that. I'm very proud of them. It's a weird one that Fitzmaurice can be so proud of a team that were outplayed for most of the game, but I can see where he's coming from as well.
Yeah, they were outplayed. Look, Monaghan were the better team overall in the balance of play. Some of the changes that Kerry made, I thought it did make a difference. Like they were more aggressive. I thought Donaghy, acquitted himself quite well, just doing what we kind of spoke about last week. He needed to do for the team, just put himself about, be there, just be a vocal presence on the field, keeping his teammates going, annoying the opposition, and made a massive, crucial contribution at the end of the match. And I think, look, when you see the team selection, the changes that were made, Thomas Sullivan had a really good game. Like, he really brought the fight to Monaghan on occasion. I thought he had a good game. And we saw Gavin White. We saw him attacking a little bit more, where he's a massive threat.
A lot more, and that was the problem against Galway. They put him on Shane Walsh, and we saw Gavin White fielding kickouts and driving forward. And you can't buy that.
No, you can't. It's interesting. I think Micheál Burns will have to start the next day. I thought he gave them something when he came in for the second half, and I think I suppose the disappointment for Kerry was they didn't get much out of Paul Geaney. They didn't get much supply into him now, but they didn't. Still, he's not really at the level we always expect to see from him. Now, part of that is he's not getting great supply, to be honest, but you still expect more from him. And I think when James O'Donoghue came on, for me, it's obvious why he's not in the team. He's not playing well. He just confidence maybe is a little bit low. He's maybe trying to force things, and he had a couple of opportunities to make stuff happen. It didn't really work out. Now he ended up delivering a great ball into Donaghy for the goal, and it landed in the perfect position. There was a lovely kind of backspin flight on the ball, which meant that Donaghy could read it and could tap it down to Clifford. And look, a great finish from Clifford. Clifford was reasonably dangerous. I think talk about him, his performance has been very much overhyped. He was pretty well shackled for most of the game, but he is a very dangerous forward. He kicked one good snapshot score, and he kicked a brilliant one from out on the wing.
We'll talk about him. We'll talk about him in the next part, because we don't want to go too much on it, because we'll leave that off for the next part. But the thing about it, I do take your point that Geaney didn't get much service. I don't think Donaghy even got much service, not enough service. But how can you get service when you're being comprehensively beaten throughout the field?
Yeah, it was particularly when you're losing the battleground in the middle third of the field. And
for the whole of the first half,
like you have no platform to play the game. It's very difficult to get that kick pass pass into the guys in the inside line because it's just coming from too far, so you end up having to run the ball too much. And Kerry do have a lot of guys in their team that like to run the ball anyway. Like Stephen O'Brien is a runner with the ball, McCarthy's a runner with the ball, even from their half back line. Murphy, Crowley, White, Jack Barry runs with the ball. Moran is really the only one in that middle sector that would look to kick it in, and to a certain extent Sean O'Shea as well.
Are they missing? Because even Sean O'Shea's not getting on much ball.
They're missing a playmaker. They are missing a playmaker. They're missing somebody who can get on the ball in that middle sector of the field and deliver quality ball into the lads inside, and it's a massive problem for them because they have good inside men, but they're just not supplying enough.
Sean O'Shea has been disappointing enough for me now in the last 2 games. Like, I know he did well from the frees and stuff, and he got on the end of a snapshot point, but from your centre forward you want to play him, you want somebody pulling the strings. He's not doing that. Like, I mean, he could be almost accused of hiding in these games. Like, I mean, and he's only young, and I don't want to be too hard on him, but he's vital in that position as a playmaker. And if he's able to give ball, he gave one lovely ball off the outside of his right foot in the first half and got Geaney out in front, and I think Geaney might have missed it. But we just don't see enough of that from Sean O'Shea.
Yeah, and what he was doing when he broke through was coming on to play late and scoring from play.
Yeah.
Remember that against Donegal and Leo McClune just sort of showed you what would happen if you abandoned someone like him, because he's got all the space and kicked 3 or 4 from play. So he's not even adding that there. His free kicks were good. They sort of, when there was a bit of pressure on the second half, the distance was a bit longer in fairness, but they sort of buckled a little bit. But yeah, like there is no point, as Cian says, if you have somebody like Paul Geaney, David Clifford, James O'Donoghue's not playing well, but if you had them boys inside, what is the point if you're not going to play it?
That's the thing.
Any sort of ball and they'll win it.
They're so dangerous that they need a better supply. And David Moran has been off form. He came into it a bit in the second half, but that was first half they were terrible. Now and the kickouts, like, Jesus lads, right? So the contrasting kickouts in that first half was unbelievable. I've never seen a performance of aggressive offensive kickouts like Beggins in my life. So none of these were tap outs. I don't think he only lost 2. I have some stats on him there. I'll have a look. 6 of Kerry's went astray, and all but 2 went astray for Beggin. But he's not tapping at corner back. Like, he hit the 21 on the other side. Like, I mean, it's beyond belief. He's hitting lads' chests, and they're just making movements. Like the first half display was on a level even higher than what I've seen from Stephen Cluxton. He's hitting them bang into their chest, or else just one bounce and it's done. The minimal bit of movement. When you look for the camera angle behind the goal, you can see nothing's on. There's nothing on, and suddenly he's pulling a kick out of nowhere, and on the other side you can see nothing's on, and you see panic in Kelly's bloody, like, he's standing there, Beggin's standing looking at nothing on, and he's relaxed.
Yeah,
he's just waiting for that slight bit of movement, and Kelly's looking for the movement, and his whole body is tense, and there's panic spreading throughout his team, and he ends up just kicking it on down.
Yeah, well, look, Beggin's a master at it, really, and it's the variety in his kicks. He can drill them low, short, that are landing inside his own 45. He can kick them to hit the opposition's 45, and his players are excellent at it. Like, we spoke about it during the league campaign as well. Like, I mean, his kickouts are now a massive offensive weapon for Monaghan. You know, to get them over the top, they suck the opposition down on top of them. And with the pace they have, with Carl O'Connell is the best example at wing back. He comes deep and then spins in over the top, and it's put over the wing back's head onto his chest, and the wing forward for Monaghan has already vacated that wing, so he's the whole field to run into. So it's sometimes it can be a dangerous game pressing right up on Monaghan because they are so good on the kickouts, and Beggin is so good, and he didn't really give Kerry much of a chance a lot of the time. And even when they do kick it to the contest, they're all aware it's going to the contest, so there's 3 and 4 Monaghan men getting there so that they're able to pick up the breaks and drive forward from there. Like, look, it's excellent, and it's what I prefer to see anyway. I don't really enjoy watching games where it's all these short kickouts and retaining possession with your cornerback. I like to see a more aggressive approach on kickouts.
That added to the spectacle of the game.
It does add to the game.
It totally did. It gave it more. It gave it more traditional shape.
It adds pace to the play as well.
And like moving the ball through the foot, right? Like, I mean, it's just so logical, lads, that the full-time sweepers seem to be gone out of the game. Kerry didn't have one. Monaghan are now dropping Darren Hughes pretty much back when he can get back. So everybody else is drifting back, right? So is it not more logical to get the ball down by the foot, and it'll be down in your full forward line before these lads drift back? If you hand pass it, they'll be back before you get down there. Like, there's so much, it's just basic logic. But, like, I mean, Galway, Kildare moved the ball fast through the foot. We saw a great game. We saw scores. We saw one-on-ones. Monaghan, Kerry moved the ball fast as much as they could through the foot. Like, I mean, I'd say Monaghan players enjoyed that game more than they've ever enjoyed a game. I'd say Conor McManus couldn't believe it. I'd say none of the kick pass was on. And they, you know what I mean, they had lads there, and they'll turn and then they're giving it in, and it's just lovely football to watch. And we always say, without somebody on that half forward line giving you that option, when you turn the ball over, instead of running it, kick it. And unless you have someone, and we said this in the podcast so often, but surely yesterday was proof of this, that unless you have men up the field to kick that to, you won't get your one-on-ones and easy scores from your turnovers. Your turnovers will be running ball, and by the time you get down there might be a half shot on, there might not, you'll turn back, and then it's the stalemate.
Yeah, well, I think where Kerry got caught a couple of times, and Sean O'Shea, I think what he's doing is he's trying really, really hard. He's working really hard for the team, but oftentimes he's dropping very deep with the play instead of maybe holding his position, or somebody from Kerry holding that position in the half forward line, or somewhere in that middle sector of the field, so that when the opposition are on the attack, you know, that if it does get turned over, they are that platform. Now, it's difficult against Monaghan because you can see it's a very obvious tactic from them. You know, you'd have Colin Walsh or you'd have Ryan Wiley right out on the sideline, and they're just running up the field. So look, at times they do have to be tracked, but look, we spoke about this last week. Kerry knew that was going to happen, so they could have, you know, on occasion just decided, look lads, let them off. We'll take the chance, like we will take the chance on occasion to try and put manners on the defenders, because we don't want you boys back. Yeah. And then you see the flip side of it then, where Monaghan have that kick pass, they're putting massive pressure on in the middle third of the field. Malone and these guys getting pressure on the ball, getting turnovers in that middle sector, and transferring the ball quickly. And it was more obvious in the Kildare-Galway game. I mean, Galway had one move in particular which was absolutely magnificent the first half, which ended up in a score for Comer, where it was 3 kick passes, you know, each of them diagonal into space, and you know, absolutely brilliant stuff. And it's what, you know, it's the way that we all, well, personally for me anyway, it's the way I like to see the game played, where
it works. It's
like effective.
Yesterday proved it works. It proved that you'll get the ball down there before the other team gets back. And like Kildare, they're all the same. All half forward lines now are getting back, but they're not getting back ahead of the ball unless you're Tyrone. They'll get back ahead of the ball. The rest are getting back as soon as they can. Do you know? And like, to beat them retreating is to kick the bloody thing. I thought Galway gave an exhibition of football yesterday, and gave an exhibition of how football in the modern game, with some numbers back, but with a view of getting the ball up the other end of the field as fast as possible to make the best out of Burke, Comer, Walsh.
Yeah, I think, because it's interesting you make that comparison, because Monaghan could have worked it better. Like, it worked so well for them. How many times were you in a position thinking, put it over? And then they sort of pussyfooted around.
Yeah, that's still in them a bit. Yeah,
and
still in them a
waiting
bit.
for McManus. If he's not on it, nobody's going to take the shot. Like Darren Hughes at the very end, he could have just put that ball over and won the game.
Yeah, and Shane Carey had 2, one where he didn't take the shot on, and the next one then he took the shot on. Yeah, fecked up both of them. So look, Monaghan kind of threw that game away, but it's just very interesting at times the way these games can just, by what the opposition does or by what you do, you can completely change the tempo and shape of the game. And the Kildare-Galway match was brilliant because Kildare knew they had to win the game. So in fairness to them, and they've done it in pretty much all the games that I've seen, they're going at the game.
They're a great team, great system.
They're a really good team to watch because they are sort of ambitious in how they play the game, and they will leave gaps and they will concede scores, but they back themselves and they go for it. And I think that's to be admired and commended, because it's the reason that they are where they are. If they went back trying to play a more conservative game plan, I think they'd be nowhere.
Yeah, but you look at Mickey Hart's comment after the game, lads, after the game on Sunday night. We just went for it. Now he's talking about the last. They're 6 points down at home after playing very conservatively, and we could have told them last Thursday, you won't beat Dublin with that. They're better, they're bigger, stronger. You won't beat them in that type of game. Mickey Hart says we just went for it. There's no point in trying to defend a 5 or 6 point deficit. You had to go for it, and we decided to do that. And then that maybe took them a wee bit by surprise. How can he say that? Why did you not tell your team to fucking go for it from the word go at home? Go for it. Kildare go for it. Galway are going for it now. Kerry, Monaghan both went for each other. Tyrone didn't go for it. That's the reality. Yeah. Like, did you see them kicking the ball away in the first half up to no one? Not even on. Because there's no link. There's no style of play outside running. And Dublin had them, like Kilkenny bullied Myler. They're bullying all their runners. All their runners are getting no joy, so they've got nothing. So Tyrone are at home and decided, based on what Mickey Hart says, is that we just went for it when we're 6 down. So in other words, we didn't go for it at the start. I think Mickey Hart might need to hand in his P45 after coming out with a statement like that.
I think it's hard to be too
Must
critical.
Get his P45, not hand it in.
Like, they did lose by 3. Should have been 1 if Ronan O'Neill had to put that over. Like, I think it's hard to be very critical of them. Dublin haven't been held to that scoreline since 2015. Like, nobody's gotten that close really outside of Mayo. Like, so it's hard to be. They're going to lose anyway. Like, if it hadn't went for it, they would have lost by more.
I think it was a 3 point. Like, Dublin went 6 up here. The game was over. Like, that game, everybody in the ground knew the game was over. I think Dublin knew the game was over. Like, I mean, that game. When Dublin are 6 points up on you.
Once Dublin got the goal, it gave them the cushion they needed in the game, and it's amazing with. It's amazing that Tyrone conceded that goal, because they're set up to not concede a goal, and then to concede a goal with the manner that they did, where they have everybody back, they have their 2 sweepers in place. Kavanagh takes a step in the wrong direction, and McCarthy's through, and Burns misses the tackle when he should have just. If he's there as a second sweeper, and the first one is gone, there's absolutely no way James McCarthy should have passed him. He tried to stop him. He came across late. His positioning was wrong in the first place. He came across too late, and McCarthy stepped by him. He tried to stop him with his arm. If you're the second sweeper there, nothing gets past you.
But even Kavanagh, like, I mean, he's the enforcer in there. He's meant to be the man that stops the goals. He should be coming out, and James McCarthy should have been getting carried off the field. He should be hitting him with such a belt, or like a fair shot, like a shoulder. But even if it's frontal, you give away the free. Nobody's coming back in here. That's the enforcer that he's supposed to be.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the way they set themselves up. Like, if you look at the way Colin Kavanagh plays, right? If you were watching him play a club match, you'd be going, what is this lad doing? He's playing midfield, yet every time we lose the ball, he's back standing our full back line. What are you doing? Get out here and put pressure and win the ball. Stop hiding in there doing nothing.
Well, I agree now.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so Tyrone's whole game plan is set up around the way he kind of plays in that sweeper. And now they have Burns then as the second sweeper, and it is a containment game, and it does, in fairness, it suits the players that they have to try and break on the counter attack, and against most opposition they will win. They'll win comfortably enough because they have such brilliant strike runners, and they are a little bit let down by the fact that they just haven't got that same quality in their attack as they do maybe back the field in terms of their running game. I thought Mark Bradley, when he came in, made a difference. Like, he's a massive plus to them. Like, if they had him and Lee Brennan, now I know Lee Brennan's untested here. We're hoping that he might be that level.
But this is the thing here, lads, right? And this is the problem. And it's hard to be critical of Tyrone in this. You look at Galway. Look at their brilliant game plan. Comer is the central figure in this, and Burke as well. Kildare of Daniel Flynn, who you can base a whole game plan around. He's going to break. You've got McManus for Monaghan. Tyrone just unfortunately don't have that focal point, and it doesn't look to have anyone in the county that is a big enough, strong enough, dominant full forward that you'll say we're going to base a game plan. Richie Donnelly is not at that level, and they didn't use him the other night. The kicking game was gone the other night. Keane O'Sullivan just swept in front of him, and their kicking game was gone. Now Daniel Flynn will have a sweeper more often than not, but he's breaking and he's taking him out of there, and someone else. Tyrone just don't really want to kick it, and that was the reality of it. And maybe you can forgive them because they just don't have those inside forwards.
Well, I think of it logically. Like, think back to the teams that you played on, or any time you played a game. If you knew that you had a brilliant inside forward, you'd be just trying to get the bloody ball into him at every available opportunity. There'd be your game plan would hopefully be set around getting him the ball. But if you had the ball at any stage, you're kind of thinking, right, I'll just put it in his hands. Tyrone don't have that. All Tyrone's go-to men are Matty Donnelly, Peter Hart. These guys back around the middle of the field. Their go-to men are not up front. Now, Monaghan got caught a couple of times the other day where they were looking for McManus, but you can understand why, because they get up to a point, they're like, right, where is he? Give him the ball, because it's going to be over the bar. He's going to make something happen. He'll win a free. So I think that's they just, unfortunately for them, we've spoken about it a lot, they're just lacking that quality. And I do think that Bradley has enough of the qualities to bring them further on in the game. Like, I thought he showed a great attitude when he came on as well. Like, he actually was one of the players that kind of set that tone of why are we standing back here? And Kieran McGeary did the same thing of driving at them going, like, what's the point here? We're losing. Like, cop on, let's go. Like, Bradley was in there with Johnny Cooper and he's giving him his fill, and I'd say he's in there going, lads, will you get the ball into me? I'll clean Johnny Cooper.
Do you know what happened here? And I take your point, Bradley does set the tone, that kind of tone. Dublin started their Donegal kind of carry on, and Mickey Hart and Hurst Devlin are waving at their lads to come down and not let Dublin do that. So that was what kicked it off. Dublin have only themselves to blame for Tyrone actually, pushing
coming out to play,
because Donegal were embarrassed to such a level that they were waving them down. Now, you have to ask the question why they weren't told to come down and engage more earlier in the game. Why did they have to wait until Dublin were about to embarrass them with this hand passing thing, which was of course orchestrated by Kieran Kilkenny again? But Dublin actually only have themselves to blame for being under a lot of pressure at the end of that game, and Tyrone deserve a lot of credit. They were willed on by their home fans, and they showed a lot of heart and courage. But at the same time, they have no game plan. It can never beat Dublin, and they've no kicking game, and that's the reality of it. And they had to wait until there was a threat of being embarrassed on their home ground before they actually came down and hit Dublin high up the field.
Yeah, I think if you look at the way Dublin play and the pressure that they put on the ball a lot around the middle of the field, I mean, that makes it more difficult to play a more aggressive and attacking game. Obviously, Dublin are excellent at the back. Their defenders, man for man, are really, really good. The work rate of their team is excellent. So no matter what, it's always going to be more difficult against Dublin to create these scoring opportunities and good chances. But definitely, I agree with you. If your whole game plan is set up around a slow build-up and then these strike runners that Tyrone do, you're condensing the space for yourself an awful lot, and you're having to carry the ball all the time, which is very energy sapping, which means that in turn, if you do get a score, it's very then hard to do that aggressive press on a team, which does require a lot of energy and intensity, particularly against a team as good as Dublin, who are also good on the ball. So I think that Tyrone's style of play actually blunts how aggressively they can actually press the opposition as well. Against a team as good as Dublin.
Against a team as good as Dublin, who are just too big and strong. They're too big and strong, and they're blocking the Tyrone runners. And John Small destroyed Peter Hart, who I genuinely think Peter Hart hides in big games. I don't see him dominating big games. I see him breaking against Roscommon. I don't see him breaking against Dublin. Tyrone never turned Dublin over in the 45. Remember we talked about Roscommon. Enda Smith giving that ball away. Tygo O'Rourke bringing the ball into contact, and they're gone. Did you see them doing that against Dublin once? The turnovers they got were from maybe in the full back line if Dublin kicked it in. They were never, ever had Dublin back chasing after their own goal. Isn't that incredible? Dublin just never gave them the contact. And I was surprised with the small pitch. They couldn't get hands on Dublin.
But it's the quality of what Dublin do. I mean, it is the quality of how good their players are. They turn away from the tackle.
Brilliant. They spin away. Howard's brilliant at that.
Howard is unbelievable on his feet. He can take it right to man, spin away, and then drop the shoulder, and he's gone.
In a different direction.
In the blink of an eye, he's away from somebody. So I think that they do have a number of players that are very, very elusive and good on the ball. I think realistically, if you're playing against Dublin, you do have to target certain members of their team for that aggressive press, and other players you're kind of thinking, okay, we need to be a little bit more conservative here, because if we press in too hard on him, he'll skip by a few of us, and then he's into open country and we won't get back. So there is a bit of tailoring it to the players that you're up against. But I think if you want to win a game, I still go back to it. You have to go and chase the game down.
You have to risk.
You have to risk. Like, you can't just continually play a conservative game plan all the time. You will not win. You will not win against these top teams.
You shouldn't have to wait until you're 6 down to actually change it. But just on the matchups, Merchant went on Sludden, did brilliant, because Sludden was the real form man. And Merchant, fairness, Merchant is one of the cleanest footballers I've ever seen. There's no dirt in him. He's doing nothing. He's just putting his hand onto Sludden's chest to make sure that he's touch tight. He's not doing the blocking the runs. He's not doing any of that old nonsense. He's the cleanest, smallest player I've ever seen. But he's just so blindingly fast.
Quick,
he can just get back up there. McCarthy to midfield.
On to Matty Donnelly was a good move as well.
And I don't think it can be underestimated, the Dublin management team, how spectacularly brilliant they are at getting their matchups right, getting their team selection right. And you look at Eamon Fitzmaurice and he's struggling to find his right. Dublin never get this wrong. Sludden was taken care of, Hart was taken care of, Donnelly was taken care of, all by Small, who hadn't played a few games, Merchants, who only knew, McCarthy, who had been in the backs all year. Bang, bang, bang. Men looked after. I thought Kavanagh running back, and I always kind of was almost like, who's going to take care of Kavanagh doing this? It's a good tactic for Tyrone. But the other night it was just showed Kavanagh up for maybe that he is kind of hiding, because Fenton got his hand on a mountain of ball. You can't just leave Fenton. Now there is a transitional point where you go and someone else picks Fenton up. Now someone else will be quick enough, but McCarthy's on Donnelly. Who's good enough out there for Fenton?
Hamzy was trying to pick him up, but he's overworked.
Nowhere near good enough for Fenton. So Fenton was in around the danger area, making a nuisance of himself, handling loads of ball. Kavanagh, you get out there and match up with him and put it up. You're probably one of the only players that has the physical matchup for Fenton. Do you know what I mean? I just thought that looked outdated or something against Dublin the other night.
And there was Tyrone had all their bodies back. There was a couple of times that McCaffrey came running with his back to goal. They win ball in front of him, from a free kick or whatever. They were sort of exploiting that space that Tyrone were leaving. And as much as Tyrone tried to sort of stop the Dublin full forward line or keep them tight inside the 45. Then Howard came into, McCaffrey came into, Philly McMahon came up, Brian Fenton ran the show. There was just too much to do, and you're right, like I don't think Tyrone have a full forward line to base their game plan around, but Tyrone have a good bunch of defenders. Like maybe they should start basing a game plan around that and saying these boys can cope with the majority of what will be thrown at them. We can put more pressure on out the field here. We can tag Brian Fenton better.
Well, I think there's occasions, like I think in general Tyrone are doing a lot of the right things. They're making it very difficult, but there are times in the game where Cavan is a waste of time back where he is. He needs to come out the field.
You're offering
and
the
press.
other team onto you.
Yeah,
and you're offering Dublin of all teams onto you. Like it's been proven. When's the last time a system like this has beaten them?
Yeah.
Now obviously they haven't been beaten in a long time.
Yeah.
But this system does not offering Dublin on, not pressing Dublin up that high, allowing them solo the ball, going to the cornerback, solo the ball to your 45. It just has proved not to work. I expected more from Tyrone at home. I really did with the smaller pitch. I just thought that they'd go. There was no flash points. I just thought Tyrone would try to intimidate them and try to give it to them. There was nothing. It was a clean.
Too tired to do that.
Yeah, maybe they were tired because actually it has to be mentioned that they are on a long roll. I think the Myler chance, the one time they did get through the Dublin defence with a nice kick pass over the top, which we don't see for often. Paul Mannion comes out of nowhere. The speed of that man is unreal. He's a beast of a man. There was another turnover in the first half. The Dublin forwards, Conor Callaghan's confidence is gone. Like how he stayed on the field that long, I'll never know. But Mannion and Dean Rock, these lads are 6'2" and they're built like tanks. Kieran Kilkenny is built like a bull. He's a bull now. There's no messing with this lad. These fellas are getting hands on, and you can't get around them. You can't. And Dublin are playing very defensively against the likes of Tyrone. Tyrone are bullied by Dublin. They're just bullied. You have to think of another way of doing it.
Yeah, well, I think the physicality of both teams was hugely impressive. I thought their conditioning as well. I mean, the energy in the game was massive. The speed of play was massive for large parts of the game. And it's fairly obvious that at times there's going to be lulls in the game because of the amount of energy that both teams used up. I don't think that Tyrone can really match Dublin toe to toe. So I think that they do have to tailor their game plan, because look, if they go toe to toe, Dublin have better forwards and would beat them. So I think that they're doing a lot of the right things. Genuinely do think they're doing a lot of the right things. I just think that on occasion there is times in the game where they could do it, stepping forward and being a little bit more aggressive in the press. I just didn't see it often enough. At the weekend. I think they did it at times. Even in the first half there were occasions where on Dublin's kickouts it was dicey enough for Dublin, that they did it pretty well. In the second half they got a little bit more joy from it when they were able to get that territory, maybe from a free or from a slow attack where they were in their position. But look, you have to hand it to Dublin again. Like you mentioned their management, like these matchups, they always get them spot on. They just have the matchups for every team. Like Merchant came out of nowhere now to be, after having two really, really good performances back to back. But he's absolutely perfect for McHugh and perfect for Sludden, and he's done two brilliant jobs. Like, just because he's small and he's quick doesn't mean that he's automatically going to be able to go out and mark these top class guys, but he's done it. He's delivered two brilliant performances, and he mightn't play again for the rest of the year.
That's the thing. He might not suit the next game, and that's the beauty of Dublin. And if Dublin go out and play Kerry next week, or Mayo, you'll see a much more kick passing. You'll see their half forward holding their shape a little bit more, and you'll see a different game plan. Dublin have two clear game plans. Other teams don't. I think Galway now have two clear. I am a lot more unsure about Galway. Michael Daly was outstanding at centre half forward.
He was fantastic,
and you'd love to see him back now. So he looked like he was holding that position a little bit more. Shane Walsh, we know now they're playing with three. He's always up there unless he has to follow his man. Shane Walsh is always looking for Comer, so he's getting the ball turning. Shane Walsh showed a bit of a playmaking side to his game in that he's turning around looking for Comer, someone else running off Comer. Beautiful stuff. So now I'm confused about how Galway might set up in their next game. They've really, over the course of the year, gone from Comer on his own to Ian Burke being added in as a partner for him, to Shane Walsh now going with three. They've gone from one up to two up, and now they have three up. And Michael Daly, don't tell me he's there to be back to doing too much work. And so Johnny Heaney and Brannigan are still doing all the hard work. Their half back line is not following their men into midfield. They're acting as sweepers, so they're constantly clogging up that kind of area. Look at the Kildare half forward line. Paul Cribben got 3 points, Fergal Conway got 2, and Keith Cribben could have had 3 points in the first half as well, because their men are getting back minding the house, and they're kind of maybe swarming the middle of the field, but that's as far as the forwards are going. So when they turn the ball over, they don't have that huge disconnect. Do you know what I mean? They're half.
No, very, very much so. They're trying to retain, but like these are proper attacking players. Like you're talking about, you know, Comer, Burke, Walsh, Daly. Like they're proper scoring forwards. Like they're silky footballers. They, you know, they've class, they've vision, they've pace. They can score. You know, they're scorers.
Yeah.
It would be a complete disservice to them to be having them back in the half. You know, they will go back on occasion if they're tracking a runner, or if they see an opportunity to get on a ball by just jogging 20 metres if they haven't got on it for a while. So there's a good bit of fluidity there. And then Brannigan and Heaney are, you know, they're energiser bunnies up and down the field, like fantastic stuff. The midfielders, Cook adds a lot to them there in terms of legs from the middle on the attack as well, which allows Flynn to kind of hold around that middle sector of the field and be the physical presence. Their half back line are nice and solid. Like they're setting themselves, Galway have set themselves up now to not concede goals really, in a slightly different way than Tyrone do it.
Yeah. By
just retaining their six in position and trusting their forwards because they have the forwards to do it. Whereas Tyrone don't trust their forwards to do it, so they need to devise a system where their defenders can bomb forward and they still have defensive cover, you know, when they obviously if it breaks down or they can't get back. So two contrasting styles, but I think
similar but contrasting. There's subtle differences between the two of them.
Yeah. Look, I thought Ian Burke was really, really good at the weekend. His movement, his vision, just the way he's able to kind of jink away from players, and you know he's brilliant to just, you know, he's made a number of assists in all the games, like really, really good.
I think he had 6 assists. Michael Meehan was tweeting
that's
yesterday.
Unbelievable.
It's unreal. Like I mean, and the dummy hand pass and waiting for the perfect hand. Like
I thought that the goal.
He's the most natural footballer I've seen. The brain on him.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's very rare you see a fella who constantly does the right thing. Like the thing, almost like in that pressure. You're seeing that on TV, and he's almost doing it before you're saying that's the right thing to do.
I mean, the goal chance in the first half was brilliant. He won a ball in a bit of space, and you were thinking, right, he could just turn and clip this over the bar. No, he was looking to see, right, there might be a goal on here. Yeah. So he played a 1-2 with Heaney, like an early hand pass, which you don't usually players they carry it until they're about to get tackled, then they slip it off. He moved it so that he could then take his 4 steps without the ball and drive onto the pass from Heaney. Heaney just popped it back to him. He kind of delayed the pass then slightly to play it through to, I'm not too sure, Sweeney who ended up with the shot, you know. So it was just pure class. Like so often players they give the pass too early, they give it too late, it's down at a lad's ankle. Like this was just pure class from a player that created something, a goal chance out of nothing really, just by two quick hand passes timed right and done at the right speed. You know, just really, really good stuff. And you know, when you have a forward line that has a guy like Burke in it, who he's going to make things happen. You have the power of Comer. You have what, like
Walsh,
they're very exciting. They're the most exciting forward line by a long way left in it. Like Kerry's forward line, even though there's plenty of names there, they're not just there
yet.
They're
not functioning.
Like Dublin, their forward line, their form is not good. Con O'Callaghan's form isn't good. Mannion's form isn't good. They're really relying on Dean Rock to carry them a lot, and Kilkenny to kind of do what he's doing. So in terms of just, and it's their runners, it's the likes of McCarthy and McCaffrey and these guys coming from deep. So as a forward unit, I think Galway are the most exciting, and
they're the best on the eye, and their progression over the course of the year has to be complimented.
Absolutely,
because,
they deserve huge credit because they set their stall out early in the year. They were negative in a lot of their games early on the year defensive. Now look, weather conditions, we said during the league, you know, does play a part in how these games are played. I think as the season has gone on, new players have thrived. Burke has come back into the team and his form has guaranteed his place. Because his form has been so good, they've changed the way they play. They're now playing with more players up there purely because they've found a guy who adds so much to the team. He can't be overlooked. And that's really what you're looking for from managers, that they see the players at their disposal and they kind of go, right, we need to change this guy's playing too well, we can't leave him off. You know, we'd be critical of guys who are just stuck, regimented to a style of play. You know, it has to suit the players you have, and Galway have evolved over the season just by virtue of the fact that players have come in and grabbed it.
They had 13 different scorers, lads.
That's incredible.
11 of their starting team scored, which is almost beyond belief. It's almost beyond belief, and this is getting the ball up to their forward line early, and still Gareth Bradshaw, like I see Heaney's here as scoring, but he plays wing forward. Sean Kelly, he scored. Cook scored, Sweeney scored, Flynn scored, Walsh scored, Daly scored, Burke scored, Comer scored, Brannigan scored. Like, I mean, that's total football. I don't care what anyone said. And while we were critical of Galway early in the year, when we saw them only leaving Comer up on his own, and then sometimes even Comer back blocking, I think rightfully we were critical, saying there's so much more in this team, and it was only based on that. And as the year's gone on, they've come to a point where you were seeing the best out of the forwards up in the forwards, and I'm delighted for them because, like, I mean, they are showing their true potential now, and I think Galway are the only team left in it that can beat Dublin. I still don't think they can beat Dublin this year, but they're the only team that is going to have Dublin under pressure.
They're the only team that I've seen that has the forward and scoring power.
Yeah.
To do it, because so often we see like the reason Mayo were able to compete with Dublin so well on the big days was because they had such incredible running power and that from their half back line, and you know, in fairness, they had enough quality around the field to create, to
physically
pose
big enough
and
too.
Physically to compete. It remains to be seen. Galway are still untested at the real crux of it against Dublin, you know, on a big day. It's an unknown. Kerry for the
league final's a big day though. Like, I mean, they didn't disgrace themselves. They showed that they can physically stand up to Dublin.
They showed that they can compete. Whether or not they can beat them is another story. When you look at Kerry over the last number of seasons, they've never been able to score enough to beat Dublin. You know, bottom line, they haven't been able to get a platform in the game to create opportunities for their forward line to get scores. So ultimately, they haven't been good enough as an attacking force to beat Dublin. And then when you see much the same when you look at Tyrone, just haven't been a good enough attacking force, and Donegal, particularly now without McBrearty, I think that's just an absolute killer for them.
It is that's
and
them.
You know, I would probably fancy Tyrone to beat them now the next day, just given the couple of injuries that Donegal have, with Owenbaugh and Gallagher going off as well. We don't know the extent of his injury, but just without McBrearty, it just blunts them so much, and it's an awful pity for them because they had been showing an awful lot of the right things, you know, in terms of their progression. But I think it could be the end of the road from the next day. But really, look, Galway are the only team at this point that I can see have the potential to beat Dublin. I think if Dublin play Tyrone again in Croke Park, we'll see something similar. Tyrone will compete with them, make it very difficult, but Dublin will ultimately probably get ahead and coast.
Yeah, I think that'll be the way it is. Right, we'll come back here with Paddy Power performance of the weekend. Alright, so David Clifford, lads, 1-4 from play against Galway, 1-3 from play against Monaghan. These are two physical teams. This is a fella just out of minor. He kicked a huge point in the second half. I think they were 5 down, didn't give up, that made it 4, scored the goal, got booked early with his marker, obviously was given close attention, showed that he can actually stand up for himself, is not in the least bit intimidated. He's a huge man. I need to repeat, he's just out of minor. I didn't even play senior just out of minor, and when it was up the second year out of minor, second year under 21, I was looking around going, Jesus, you're still waiting, you're not ready to be one of the main men on the team, and he's dragging the most traditional, the most successful county in the whole country. He's dragging them through games just out of minor. Like, I mean, I don't think it can even be stressed enough how much of a phenomenal stuff it is out this lad. And I take your point, Keane, that you said in the last section. He's not in the game all that much, but he's a finisher. Finishers aren't in the game, and sometimes you think, we know there's a whole load more to his game because he's a playmaker too, we've seen it, but at the moment he's just showing what a lethal. If this was anyone else outside of him, Lee Brennan for example, who's getting 1-3, 1-4 from play, would not be on much ball, you'd say what the greatest finisher in the game, because Lee Brennan has nothing else to his game, only a finisher, so we'd be crowing on about his finishing. I don't think Clifford is even getting the credit for his finish, you know, for this lethal tight angles, you know, snapshots, you know, goal out of nothing, 2 goals, being in the right place. He's not getting the credit for this because he's such a rounded player, and maybe we think, geez, he should really be dominating the game a bit more. He's only bloody 19.
Yeah, well, I think that, look, there's the reason I said that is it's just overhyped because people are thinking about what he's going to be in 5 years' time, and people are writing columns and stuff about this, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think, like, people need to cop on. Like, what he's doing is he's produced now for Kerry in the last 2 games when nobody else has. Yeah. So I think he deserves massive credit for that, as you say, for being able to come in at his age and taking all of the factors into account.
Living off scraps.
Yeah, he's doing exceptionally well. I think the quality of his 2 points, 2 of the 3 points, was just absolutely top drawer. Both of them from out near the wing, absolutely fantastic. The other one, again, very sharp as you expect, but the other 2 were low percentage shots. I mean, the one that he got particularly in the second half was an absolute boomer when nothing was happening for them.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, you know, he was reasonably prominent in the first half, and then the second half, I'm nearly sure he didn't touch the ball for the first 25 minutes of the second half, and I'm pretty sure that was his first touch of the second half, was that point.
Yeah,
where he just got on the loop and bang over the bar.
That went a mile over the bar too.
That's the thing that we talk about a lot, where forwards aren't getting on the ball and inside forwards, and they can tend to panic or try and force things. Like, he just still, the fact that he wasn't in the game for 20-25 minutes, nothing was happening, his team weren't in it. You know, for a fella 19 to just take it on and to deliver, like, it's a different. If he takes that on and drops it short or scuffs it wide, you're like, Jesus Christ, like this. You haven't touched the ball in 20 minutes. Play yourself into it. But when he nails it, you're kind of revising that and you're saying, brilliant. Look at that leadership. He's taking it on and all this. And look, he was in the right place at the right time for the goal as well, and he finished it well. Yeah. So I mean, what more do you say? 1-3 from play. Yeah, can't argue with it. Like,
outstanding stuff. Michael Murphy. So all the big talk about Michael Murphy is, why doesn't he play inside? Why is he out the midfield? He scored 9. Was it 5 from play from Murphy? I'm pretty sure it was. Like, I mean, I'll tell you a good one about this. So I was listening to this driving up to Oma on the radio, and it was John Casey was doing co-com. I'm trying to think who. I think it was Ger Canning maybe doing the commentary. And 30 minutes into the game, they leave the game. So they've live national exclusive coverage of this Super 8 game. They leave it for a horse race. Now, horse race wasn't ready when they left this live national exclusive game, so we had to listen to a man and a woman talk about this upcoming horse race. Like, I'm sitting in the car going, what's going on here? So wait and you get this. They come back to the game. 37 minutes. They lost 7 minutes of this game. Just about to throw in for half time. They got the skirmish. In that time, Michael Murphy's been moved to full forward and scored 3 points. You're missing this to go to a horse race, a Super 8 game that you've national coverage of, to go to a horse race, the Irish Oaks. Who gives a shit? This is a Super 8 game. Like, I mean, surely you'll play this recording of give the result of that bloody race and play the recording of the commentary of it at half time. 7 minutes while he goes to full forward. Imagine trying to talk to people after the game. I was listening on the radio. Jeez, Murphy didn't get much of it, did he? He seemed to be out around the middle of an awful lot. Like, it was outrageous. But anyway, back to Michael Murphy.
Yeah, he's a very good full forward, it turns out. Again, we talked about the vocal point. He just gives him that vocal point. I think actually what happened though was that they started losing out in the middle when he went in the full forward. So you can see the sort of logic behind it. They lost a lot of ball in the middle, but it does pay off, like, way more having him in there.
Declan Bonner, just quickly, Keane, before you come on. Declan Bonner made the comment, and he's fair enough on this. He says you have to get your hand on the ball in that middle third before you do anything with Michael at full forward. Michael is that crucial to the team. We know that if we're going to come out and top in midfield, then we'll get Michael inside. So, like, that's the way they are. Like, they've Hugh McFadden in their defence and Leo McClune. Like, it's not the most dominating midfield in the world. Like, they need him out there. And if they see they're getting on top there, then they can put him in. And that makes sense to me.
The key man for them really at the weekend, particularly in the first half, was Langan from centre forward. He, on all of the Roscommon kickouts, he dropped back right into the middle of the field. So he had himself and Hugh McFadden, who were two massive men, and then they were coming in on breaks off it, which allowed Murphy on occasion, when they were able, when it was obvious they were winning it or he was after ending up in the full forward line, he just kind of stayed in there. Now the thing about it is, it's an interesting thing, because even when Michael Murphy plays around the middle of the field, I don't see him catching many kickouts. Now what he does is
he orchestrates.
Well, to me, he doesn't really do a huge amount. He moves around a lot. He's a massive physical presence, so he's a blocker in there, and he gets a lot of tackles in. But if that's the level that Michael Murphy is doing in there, I mean, how is there not somebody else in their team that can do that donkey work? Because that's what it is. He's out there doing. Now he's good at it. He's exceptionally strong. He's aggressive in the tackle. He's forcing the opposition maybe to go down a different route if he's in a particular channel.
He needs watching out there too.
Yeah, but it's a complete disservice to him, because he's actually never contributes in the attacking sense, because he just can't get up there. Yeah, he just can't do it. And I think when you have the mix right of him maybe drifting in and out, because there's a risk then that you start him in full forward and he's in there getting dogged for the game. He gets into a lull period where he's not involved, and the whole thing starts to fall apart, and he's not playing well. So I think he needs to be involved in the game. So I think when Donegal don't have possession, he can drift back around the middle. The interchanging of positions is vital. But if Donegal are to go anywhere or do anything, or even just in the future for Michael Murphy's own game, and for him to be performing to the levels that we know he can, he's wasted in the middle of the field. It's a waste.
Especially when they've more of a kicking game now and they're trying to get it in. You'd imagine that just makes perfect sense. I do take his point at the midfield, but
if you had him midfield marking Fenton or Michael Darren McCauley, they do to him what they did to Aidan O'Shea.
He wouldn't have the legs for them.
So Aidan O'Shea gets criticised for that, and then they play him in full forward. He's kind of left in there and doesn't get much joy. these guys are so good. You know, they're such good all-rounders. They need to mix around, but their best work is always done. You know, for Murphy it's at full forward, and for Aidan O'Shea it's at centre forward. So for Donegal again, and for Donegal, they need Murphy in there as often as they can. So look, I take it on board what Bonner is saying. I just don't particularly agree with it.
Yeah, just put him in a bit more. We saw none of him in full forward really against Dublin, when it was the day that you would imagine that we would have seen him. Brian Howard, lads, we talked about him last week. Outstanding. I'm becoming a huge fan of Brian Howard. I love his sidestep. I love like the way he's able to get up for kickouts. He's a smart player. He's able to kick points. There's nothing about Brian Howard that's not likeable for football lovers. He's got a sidestep like Jaff Fallon, a real pronounced sidestep, and he's there and he's gone the other way, and he's so light on his feet. He was outstanding again brought off before Con, and Jim Gavin has given Con every chance to turn his game around, when I actually think what Jim should do is give Con a week off. Like, give him a week off, give him a rest. He's on the road an awful long time. David Beggan, obviously, lads, we talked about him. He's a phenomenal goalkeeper. Tomas Flynn, I thought, was outstanding for Galway, and standing up when he needs to as well. And there's been he seems to have a harder edge now this year, where you can actually trust his performances before he get blown out of it. Peter Cook is a good foil, because there's no one blowing that lad out of it. Even though Cook, have to say, shot a couple of times when he shouldn't have. And Kearns for Monaghan, when Conor McManus is doing the loop around him, and this fella's going with his left. Come on now, jeez, I can't believe that. Like, their whole point of being on the field is to get Conor McManus the ball. This fella's going off. I think he's off his wrong foot. I think he's right-footed. And Blazer White, I was amazed by that. Midfielders, stop trying to score when you're not able to.
Or when you have Conor McManus.
Or when you've got a better player around you. Yeah, Conan, who won the? I think I'm leaving one man out, because I think he won the poll. On Twitter.
Conor McManus won it. 1,500 votes. Conor McManus got 42% of it. Michael Murphy in third place, Brian Howard fourth, and David Clifford in second. Yeah,
okay, and there's not an awful lot to add to Conor McManus. I'd say, when I mentioned the Monaghan players enjoyed that game, I'd say Conor McManus just couldn't believe his luck. No sweeper, I'd say, for the first time in years, and he made hay. Was it 1-5 from play? Just out, like, we know how good he is, how brilliantly accurate he is, and I don't know. I think they said on the live coverage a sweeper wouldn't have made much difference for the goal. It wouldn't have. It was such a brilliant delivery. A sweeper wouldn't have made much difference from the one that came from deep. It wouldn't have. Well, now, there's one that it might have made a difference. But look, Kerry just go for it. Kerry are saying, you've got Conor McManus, we've got Clifford and Geaney, and our two good lads will beat your one lad. And that's their philosophy.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted they went back to that, because they went away from it against Galway. So, I mean, that's what's going to suit them best, is backing themselves and going at the game. And look, you have to take it when you're playing against top quality opposition. They're not going to come up against a forward as good as McManus again. So, you know, and realistically, even if they flooded their defence, which some of the scores McManus got was on a slow attack. So it wasn't like it was isolation for a cornerback 1-on-1 where he got it and got skinned.
Yeah.
It was McManus with clever movement coming on the loop and finishing brilliantly. Very difficult chances. So look, he put in a bit of a masterclass really of finishing and execution. Yeah, and point kicking, which we know that he's so good at. Right, so I'm not overruling the poll. I think it's fair enough. 1-10 against Kerry, 1-5 from play. Like, I mean, that's just enough. At home, it's what dreams are made of for Conor McManus. And thankfully, we see Conor McManus. Like, I mean, I'd be critical of the Ulster football and all. Conor McManus against Tyrone has to score them from the sideline in the last minute or two. But we saw if Conor McManus was from a different era, like, this lad would be a phenomenon. Like, you'd be remembering, like, Peter I know some pundits always dream about the football back in the 90s and Peter Canavan and all these lads at Morris Fitzgerald. They were brilliant. They had no sweepers in front of them. They were brilliant, and they never had any negative systems. The forwards now, Conor McManus and all these fellas, are doing it with defensive systems that the 90s and 2000s football can't even begin to imagine. There's no ball going into them, and they're still making hay. That's why I think that the modern players, the modern games, are on a different level to any other era, because they're now doing it. That's what they're capable of outscoring players from back then, looking as good as them, but they're also able to do it with bloody 15 men inside of 45. So, it's unbelievable. Anyways, we've gone way over time here, lads. Keane's giving me the eye. I always love the way Keane's looking to get away early, but then you throw a question to him and he just can't.
Never shuts up.
Right, we'll be back. We'll do a podcast on Wednesday here. We'll make up a podcast. There's no matches this weekend, but we'll bring something for you on Wednesday. Right, talk to you then. Good luck.